because it's pretty infrequent that a club like ours, and certainly this club, has a member turn 100. And so for us it's a special occasion, not just because Bill is 100, but also because the time leading up to being 100, and still, Bill is an engaged member of the club. No sense of backing out because of his age, even if the only reason he can really get to our meetings is because Mary drives him.
Or Barry.
Or Barry.
Yes, Barry's driver in chief.
So it's really great to have you here and to say a little bit about who you are, because for us that's important. We see you, and many of us, like me, who are younger members of the club, don't really know a lot about your background, Bill. At least we were very lucky. People will have noted somewhere in a recent local newspaper there was a piece about Bill. And if you had seen it and read it and remember what's in it, then you'll know that Bill was born on the 29th of June 1913, and that's why he's 100.
Oh, really?
You'd have also seen in here that Bill joined the RAF when he was 25. It happened that he had been drinking in a pub, and he crossed the road, he noticed a recruitment centre, so he went in and signed up. A little later he realised what he'd done and went off the booze for 3 weeks. A couple of years later he got sent across to France on a secret mission, having trained as an aircraft electrician, and to this day we don't know what he actually did while he was in France.
It was a secret.
Exactly. You're going to tell us?
No, I don't know either.
Mary has That really is a secret. He then spent time in Scotland, Egypt and Israel working on mosquitoes and Spitfires, and those of us who have been thinking about or involved in and interested in planes of that era will recognise the significance of that. At the end of the war, Bill joined BOAC, what is now British Airways, and then headed to what is now Malawi, where he took up a role as a colonial civil servant in Africa. That stuff's all in the paper here. What isn't in the paper here are some of the things that Mary has now whispered in the ears of a member of the club. Some things that she is prepared to have said today. He's looking nervous, isn't he? Mary notes that she and Bill met in the Overseas Club in St James, London. Bill was on holiday from what was then Nyasaland, and Mary was an ex-colonial because she was born there. A little later, Mary says, Bill proposed to her outside the gents' toilet on the railway station. You could read into all of that whatever you wish to and wonder what the difference would be if it was outside the ladies. Mary says she accepted, which is lucky, otherwise our conversation would be rather different today. And Bill then took off, flew back to Nyasaland to get a house and to organise a wedding. As part of that, he sent money back to Mary to buy her own engagement and wedding ring and the airline ticket to get her out. In order to get permission to get married, because Bill was in a colonial office position, he had to give an IOU for £100 as a deposit for Mary's return fare in case she changed her mind when she got there. In fact, the plane on the way broke down in Zanzibar, and Mary was stuck there for 3 days. When she eventually arrived, the real question was, when do we get married? They chose the day, then found they couldn't do it because it was a local fair day. They did get married, went to stay in a hotel by the lake. Mary asked the waitress while there were there any crocodiles in the lake. And she said her husband was a crocodile hunter, so it would be fine. However, they didn't trust it. They didn't do much swimming at all. Instead, they went for a drive. And the car got stuck in the sand. And of course, Mary had to get out and push. And she says, that's the moment when Bill decided he needed to teach her to drive.
Yo, dear, oh dear.
They lived in a small house. They kept chickens. One night, woken by a great squawking chicken sound, Bill leapt out of bed, ran out to the chicken run where a leopard was killing the chickens. At that point, he realised he was actually stark naked. And he stopped chasing the leopard. They bought 10 acres of land and built a house made out of rocks. They got an African builder who said that if he paid the women of the village a shilling a square yard, they would collect the rocks. And each morning, Bill drove Mary 5 miles to the site with her baby in a cardboard box. And then Mary supervised, of course, the building of the house. They had a pond for water, but found it had 11 times the safe amount of fluoride in it, so decided to dig their own well. They sent for a well digger who had only one eye, the other eye having been ripped out by a leopard. Leopards have a good role in this story, don't they? And one day, the well digger put a charge of dynamite in the well. Everybody took cover, except the cow, who walked straight up to the well as the charge went off. The rocks flew right over the top of her, and she was not harmed.
Oh.
Just continued to eat the grass. At this stage in Nyasaland, Dr. Bandar started to make some trouble. There was a state of emergency. Some of you may remember those days with the NAC and some of the toing and froing that was going on. And Bill needed to go on police patrol at night, which was very scary, even though they had burglar bars and guns and so on. And it was quite clear that their time as colonial civil servants was about to come to an end. At that point, Mary's uncle had said to her that New Zealand was God's own country. And so they decided to come here. They left in 1964, at the same time as Banda became president and the country became Malawi. They arrived with 4 children and 2 suitcases. And that's all. Bill, as some of you may know, started an auto-electrical business in Birkenhead, and Mary worked at the North Shore as a midwife. When Bill retired in 1974, they came up here to live and have never regretted coming to New Zealand, and I hope never regretted to coming to the Hibiscus coast.
Never.
So that's something of Bill's story and Mary's story around the end of it, edge of it, centre of it. Well done. We're going to ask you now to stand up, because one of the important things about occasions like this is photies. I know it's a pain, but there you go. Macintosh is for the camera.
Oh, right.
So if you come this way just a little bit, you're about right where we are?
Just
right.
across
This
the
way.
bit. Yep.
Right.
Bill?
No, you as well. Come on.
And I'm going to come around behind you.
That's good.
Don't trip up.
No, Now, if you're going to use flash, do my glasses go red?
I can fix it.
Oh, right. So, I've got sunglasses on. Well, sort of.
Cheers. Better than that.
Good afternoon, folks. I've been charged with a particularly lovely duty today, and that is to make a floral tribute to Mary, because we must recognise that Bill looks so good, and there must have been one very, very special lady behind him to get him looking that good, and as cheeky as he is, at 100.
Any airmen that served under me for about 7 years I was in the RAF will tell you
No, this way.
that Sergeant Smith was quiet and understandable. And he never used one bad word the whole time.
Good man.
Gosh. So we'd like to present you with this. It's only a piece of paper, but it's an important piece of paper because it says from us in this club that we really want to honour your achievement in attaining 100 years and still being a member of this club. So well done.
Actually, it's quite simple. I took the advice of my paternal grandfather, who made beer barrels,
Darling, hold it.
and he advised me, be quiet and evil and bring your kids up the same. And what we do, don't we?
Do we?
Yeah. And whatever you do, don't get caught.
Oh, we've got him now. And so, on behalf of us, if you'd like to grab one side of this certificate and look at Graham, and there's a photo.
Pass the flowers to you.
Thank you very much indeed. That's really lovely.
Yeah, the last one.
Cheers.
Cheers.
You can hold on to that. Mary just wants to say
I just
something.
want to tell them I have to live to 100. If you want to keep somebody alive to 100, just keep on making them work. He gets up, washes himself, dries himself, dresses, makes his own bed, cooks his own breakfast, and I stay in bed. Then we take the dog and we walk right across the wetlands to the other side and back again. And then I make him a cup of coffee because I'm generous, and then he goes to sleep.
I never use a bad word.
No, and he also hangs out the laundry. I do it again afterwards. You can imagine why. And the great thing is to keep active. Very active. And you'll live to 100, if you want to.
Thank you, Jean. I would like to thank Jean McIntosh for putting this lovely tribute together. She's a member of the Floral Arts group, and it is lovely to know that she has personally put the flowers together.
Pleasure.